Here it is, everyone. Google have finally released the first public beta of Android P. Now, we had the developer preview before, but that was really unpolished, very unstable and very buggy. This, on the other hand, is much more ready for public use. Again, it's recommended that you only use it if you know how to recover your device. It is intended for developers. I'm not a developer, I just have no self-control and like running unstable versions of Android on my phone. But I do know how to recover the phone with factory images if anything goes wrong. So again, if you're watching this and you want to try it out, maybe an idea just to learn and make sure you're able to do that before you enroll in the beta, just in case. But without further ado, let's have a look at what's new in Android P Beta 2. One of the first things, and this has been really sporadic for some people don't have it at all. I had it 1 minute, then it went away, and now it's just come back, and that's weather in ambient display and the lock screen just under the clock there. And I didn't mean to unlock it, I just wanted to wake it up. There we go. This is something custom ROMs have had for a long time, and whenever I'm using stock, it's a custom ROM feature I really miss. So having that showing up here, just having that under the clock, is a really, really nice touch. Another thing you'll notice, this was the same in the last preview, but in case you aren't familiar with that either, the lock screen shortcuts at the bottom are now gone. You just have the ability to unlock, there's no more shortcuts. Honestly, I don't mind, no one ever used it. If you're not using the fingerprint, using the pin, there's a nice new animation that when you swipe up, the numbers come up with it too, and the clock stays on the screen. However, I always use the fingerprint reader anyway. So that takes us onto the home screen, and there is quite a lot new here as well. First thing you'll notice is that the little arrow pointing up is gone. That's the arrow that normally tells you can swipe up over the dock, and that I only have one little pill down at the bottom. There's no recent apps or back button. That's because Android is going gesture based, and anyone who follows me on Google Plus knows that I was hating the idea of this. I loathed the very suggestion that we might switch to gesture based controls on Android. I just don't like it. I've used gestures on the iPhone X, absolutely hated it. I thought, no, you know, the iPhone's single home button was better than this. Who thinks this is a good idea? I don't want it. The problem was, I've never used an iPhone X for more than, say, 10 minutes at a time. And once I've used this for coming up for 2 days now, I was wrong. Very wrong. Gesture-based controls make sense. And I really like how it's been done here. And probably if I used an iPhone X as well, I'd love that if I was using it for, you know, an extended period of time to get used to it. But I don't have an iPhone X, I have a Pixel 2, and now I'm used to this. So let's go over exactly how these gestures work. Tapping the little pill does the same thing as normal and takes you home. Holding it down brings up your Google Assistant, and swiping up takes you now into the new overview screen. And here we can see all the apps that are open, and they are arranged in a horizontal list. You'll also notice that these icons come up, but they're different to the icons on your dock. Now, Android P uses artificial intelligence to predict the sequence of apps you open in based on your location, time of day, or what your next app will be based on the last app that you opened. And swiping up on that again takes you all into the All Apps drawer. If you want to get into the All Apps drawer from the home screen, you don't always have to do the 2 swipes, you can just do one long swipe, and that gets you straight there. What's also very, very nice, if we open Google Plus, is you can do the swipe up and swipe up again into your app drawer there, meaning now your app drawer is available anywhere in the operating system, not just your launcher. I like that. While in the app drawer, you'll notice we now have quick shortcuts, suggested shortcuts. This is something that was mentioned in the Google I/O keynote, so it uses, again, artificial intelligence to think, these are the 2 chats that you often use, and so I'm going to link into that. And this is my good friend Charlie, who's actually at Google I/O right now, lucky duck. Earlier on I was listening to music, and so it suggested, I connected to Bluetooth actually of one of the speakers that I often use, and it suggested my favourites playlist from Spotify on there. Clicked that, started playing straight away, because it thought, hey, you're connected to a soundbar, that means you're going to want to listen to music, this is the playlist you normally listen to. And what's great is all the apps work with it already. The developers don't need to do anything because it's just app shortcuts that apps already have. So as long as an app already has app shortcuts, this will work, and it works very nicely. Otherwise, in the launcher, there's very few changes, other than the fact that when you long press on the home screen now, instead of the 3 options down at the bottom, you get home settings, widgets, and wallpapers in the top here, and there's nothing really that's changed anywhere at all in that menu. That's all business as usual, as you can see. I actually wanted to show you home settings as well. Yeah, nothing's really changed here, that's all business as usual. Now you notice once I go into an app, the back button that shows up, it's contextual. It only shows up when it's actually needed. And I have heard rumour that Google are going to implement an API so that apps themselves can have an integrated back button into the software, into the app's UI. And that if an app has that, the back button will disappear. So that back button will only show when it's absolutely needed, leading to a much cleaner interface. You'll also notice we have a mic button now in the Google search bar, and it doesn't launch the old voice search, it's just another way to launch Google Assistant, because we certainly didn't have enough of those already. Going into notifications and quick settings, it looks very similar if you're used to the previous developer preview of Android, but if not, let's just have a look. So we've got this new card-based system, and I really like it. It was very, very divisive. One thing to note is you'll see that the top here of the quick settings is black. I noticed during the I/O demonstration, when the guy showing off Android P was up there, that actually showed his wallpaper back there. So he's obviously on an even more advanced test build of Android P than we are, so I imagine that's going to change pretty soon, so I wouldn't worry about that big black bar at the moment. We've also got a new Manage Notifications button. This shows all the apps that have recently showed notifications. So for example, Google Plus 9 minutes ago, Maps 10 minutes ago, and that allows you to toggle those on and off. We still have our Clear All button here, and swiping down we get Quick Settings again. In the first developer preview, Quick Settings weren't paginted anymore, they were swipe up and down in a list. I quite liked that, but a lot of people apparently didn't, so we got the pages back. I'm not too bothered, honestly, because I don't really use anything outside of the first 8, so whatever comes after auto rotation doesn't really bother me. I don't use anything outside of that much. So yeah, it looks different, it behaves the same way. We've got some fancy new animations if you look at auto rotate, with the new colours and everything like that. And we have more information. So Nightlight here, it says will turn on at 10 PM, and then when I switch it on, it will turn off at 6 AM. So it gives you a little bit more information based on that. You'll also notice at the top of the screen it says the phone is muted, and if I switch it, it now tells us which is which. And you'll also notice the new volume bars. So the volume buttons now by default only control media volume, and it comes up at the side here right next to the buttons. And instead you have a ringer button up here. Now if you do want to adjust the ringer volume, you can just hit the little settings cog here, and it takes you right into the settings there to do that. Honestly, I'm okay with that, because all I ever really do is toggle between silent, vibrate and ringer. I never really adjust the actual ringer volume, and I think they said at I/O most people are like that, and that's why they've done it this way. That's why the buttons by default do media volume now. I think that's a good change. You'll also notice in the status bar we now have the clock on the left. Didn't like it at first. You get used to it surprisingly quickly, and it has a surprisingly sort of symmetrical and kind of nice look when you have the battery percentage on next to the icon just to the right. If we jump into the settings now, it's a lot more colourful. So a lot of the categories are exactly the same as they were in Oreo. They've just had colourful icons added in. Battery has changed a little bit, so you'll see it says it should last until about 10:45 at night, currently at 82%. And the apps no longer show here. Instead you get battery is in good shape, battery saver, adaptive battery. This is where again the phone uses artificial intelligence to see which apps you use the most and which ones you use the least. And then it restricts background data access to the ones you use the least to squeeze every drop of battery out of your phone. So far works surprisingly well. And if we go into, if you want to see what apps are using all your juice, they are still there. So you can go into the overflow menu and hit advanced battery usage, and there you get the regular old chart with what apps you're are using your battery, and then you can do show full device usage from the overflow there and get all the old information that you're used to. So fear not, the old battery stats are still available, they're just a couple of extra taps away. If we go into system, this has changed a little bit, so we have advanced, and this is where you get backup, reset options, developer options and system update. We have gestures like before, and then we also have about phone, which has a new look. And let's go into advanced here as well, because we can hit Android version, and that brings up the security patch, etc. And we're going to double tap that, and then here's the very, very colourful Easter egg that I'm not a fan of, and it's a different colour every time you bring it up. At least it was the last time. There you go, the colours are changing ever so slightly. There we go, there's a big one. So that's what's kind of new in the settings menu. Otherwise that's kind of exactly the same. No, we have got one other new thing in here, and that's in color profiles. We now have a reference image to show off the different... I'm going to stick with saturated, honestly. You know, before the Pixels, I used Samsung's and Nexus phones, which had AMOLED displays as well, so I'm used to really punchy colours. I don't like the boosted or natural colours at all. It's saturated all the way for me. Lastly, let's go into multitasking again, because multi-window behaviour has changed ever so slightly. Instead of long pressing on the app to do it, instead you press on the app icon and hit split screen, and you get a really lovely animation as well, and then it behaves exactly the same way as before. And as well as that, we can now use the pill down here as a scroll bar to scroll through all of the apps that are currently open. And if you're like myself and you used to use the double tap of overview to switch between the last two apps really quickly, fear not, it's still here, and it's actually even faster because just one quick flick of the home button switches you between those two apps. Considering this is the first version of gesture navigation we've had built into Android, and it's brand new and it's in beta, it works really, really well, and I really like it. And I know I'm in a minority. A lot of other tech sites have been saying how much improvement it needs. Yes, it does definitely need improvement, but I do think it deserves some credit considering it's the first iteration we've got, and there's a long way to go before final release, and improvements are obviously going to be made. And I think my finger was catching the side of the screen then. We also have smart replies, and I'm just going to send myself a text message actually. So I'm going to quickly whip my phone out of the way. It's hard to type when I'm looking at the phone through the viewfinder. Otherwise I'd be missing all the keys. Okay, so I'm going to send myself a text here to see this. Hello there. And then you'll notice we've got notification tickers back, so it says Pulse, what app it's from. We have a lovely new heads up notification with lovely animations, and then when we scroll down we've got the normal reply call in red, but we also have yes, no, maybe, okay and thanks, and that shows for every single chat app that there is. Facebook Messenger, everything. The app doesn't need to do anything to support it. At the moment, it's very basic responses like that, again, because it's so new. That will get more complex later on, and it will start using artificial intelligence the same way Google Allo and Android Wear does. And I'm going to reply to this Telegram chat to show off as well. Test message while... Again, I can't type when I'm looking at the camera on viewfinder. While I'm filming. I can't type at all actually. There we go. And when I send that, you'll see that you can actually see my subsequent message underneath. In some apps, it will actually then show my profile picture underneath in my message, and you can get a full message thread just in the notifications shade, and then you can open that up. And I somehow open Netflix. Again, it's hard to aim your fingers at a screen when you're looking at it through the viewfinder. Otherwise, there's some very small changes other than that, but some nice ones. So you can actually select text here from the overview screen and share, copy and paste it. And you can also share images from here. So if I open Google Photos and go into overview, I can long press on that image and hit share. and I can share it with any of these apps exactly the same as I normally would. So if someone sends you a cool meme in Facebook Messenger and you want to send it to somewhere else, but you don't want to have to save it to your phone storage, because then Google Photos will back it up and you'll just have loads of memes in with your real photos, which can get embarrassing if your family opens your photo app. Sometimes a lot of explaining is involved. Then worry not, because you can just share it from there. It's never actually saved to your device, but you can share those wicked memes with other people. So pretty much that's everything new with Android P that I found so far. I may update this video later on. I'll certainly update it when Beta 3 is available. Google have said we'll be getting at least 3 subsequent builds of this, and maybe as many as 6, depending on how development goes. Even though they recommend you don't, I am using this as a daily driver, because the Thug Life, I didn't choose the Thug Life chose me. And I'm also wearing Android P Preview 2 on my watch as well, and I may be talking about that a little bit later too. So that's Android P. Any questions, let me know. If there's anything I didn't cover in this video, again, let me know and I can do a follow-up. Enjoy, and I'll see you in the next one.